Hello everyone, and thanks for choosing KTSM 9 News as your local weather authority. I'm Monica Cortes. With the monsoon well underway, we're getting to that halfway mark where we expect to see a bit of more activity, and I know it feels like we've been off to a very slow start, but the threats of the monsoon continue to be very real. Our weather authority team has you covered from exactly what the monsoon is to the dangers it poses, so you know exactly how to stay safe. So let's get started. From your local weather authority, this is a KTSM 9 News special report, Weathering the Storm. El Paso is rather dry year-round, getting a little more than 9 inches of rain a year for the most part. The majority of our rain comes during the monsoon, or officially called the southwestern U.S. monsoon. Now, the term monsoon basically means a seasonal shift of winds. Most of the year, we see winds coming in from west to east, dragging in dry air over the borderland area. During the monsoon, those winds reverse and move in from east to west, bringing moisture in from the Gulf of Mexico, as well as some weather hazards.
It starts with extreme heat, which we experience that in the early part of the monsoon. That's followed by, of course, heavy rains and thunderstorms. Those bring threats of lightning, flooding and flash flooding to the area, and even large hail. Another threat that a lot of people don't think about, believe it or not, is wildfires.
The National Weather Service defines this season between June 15th through September 30th. Many people relate monsoon to a rainy season, and while we do see the potential for rain, the early part of the season tends to be quite dry. In fact, June is the hottest month on average for El Paso. We average about 95.5 degrees, but June isn't always the hottest month every year. For example, take June of 2019, where we averaged 96.4 degrees. And while that is above average, it was below July's average of close to 100 degrees for 2019. And even though June wasn't the hottest in El Paso this year, it definitely was the hottest on record for the rest of the world. That's according to meteorologists at the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Temperatures in June averaged about 1.7 degrees warmer than the 20th century average. In fact, June was the warmest since the organization began keeping records back in 1880. June's temperatures were boosted by extreme heat across Europe, with multiple locations reaching their highest temperatures ever. July may also set a record as near triple highs continue to scorch parts of the U.S. Now, heat is the biggest threat early on in our monsoon. Afternoon highs usually reach those upper 90s into the triple digits, causing potential heat-related illnesses. Forecaster Jessica Nevares explains what those illnesses are and how to stay safe.
Hot temperatures during the summer is nothing new to the Sun City, but just because you're used to it doesn't mean you're in the clear from potential health risks.
The weather is extremely hot here.
Summer months mean plenty of outdoor fun, but the heat can turn dangerous quickly. Jason Laney, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, says the extreme heat could put you at risk of heat exhaustion or heat stroke.
Both heat exhaustion and heat stroke refer to the fact that the body cannot adequately cool itself.
Signs of heat exhaustion include feeling dizzy, a strong or rapid pulse, and feeling nauseous, which, if left ignored or unattended, could take a turn for the worst.
Heat exhaustion that's not attended to immediately can lead to heat stroke, and heat stroke can be deadly.
You'll know you're suffering from heat stroke if you feel a throbbing headache, faint, or feel confused.
Once they become confused, you know that it's a truly emergent situation. You need to get that individual to a hospital.
Some things you can do to make sure you beat the heat are stay inside and turn on the AC, limit outdoor activities, especially in the afternoon, never leave kids or pets in a hot or locked car, but most importantly,
best advice, drink lots of water. That's the best thing you can do.
Start drinking water early in the morning, preferably, before they go to bed, drink some water. Early in the day, drink some water, and then throughout the day. You never want to catch up to your sweating. You want to make sure that you always pre-hydrate.
Another tip to make sure you stay hydrated this monsoon is to stay away from caffeine during hot days. You don't necessarily need to skip your morning cup of coffee, just switch to decaf instead. Jessica Nevares, KTSM 9 News.
Thank you, Jessica. And as we begin to explain weather phenomena commonly seen here in El Paso, you'll notice many of the photos and videos used have come from you, our viewers. KTSM relies on our weather watchers to be on the lookout for storms so that they have an eye on the sky from all parts of town. In May, we held our very first Weather Watchers event where 40 of our weather watchers became certified through the National Weather Service. Now, if you'd like to become a weather watcher, just send us your pics from news at KTSM.com and be on the lookout for our next Weather Watchers event. Heat isn't the only threat during the monsoon. Haboobs are also something to be on the lookout for. Now, I know the word haboob may not sound like a meteorological term, but I assure you it is. The word itself refers to a type of a desert windstorm and comes from the Arabic word hab, meaning wind. A haboob is basically a wall of dust that results from a downburst wind created by a nearby thunderstorm. The wind pushes out dust and debris, significantly reducing visibility and making it dangerous for drivers in the area. But a haboob differs from a dust storm.
What sets a haboob apart is how it is formed. Haboobs are formed from thunderstorm outflows. A basic dust storm is dust spreading out horizontally. A haboob is dust spreading out horizontally and rising vertically.
For our region, haboobs often occur when we tend to have more rainfall associated with our thunderstorms. This is usually around late July, August, and early September. Now, if you've ever driven in a dust storm, you know the hazardous conditions it can cause on the road. Well, they can also be rather deadly. Forecaster Selena Quintana helps us go through the process of what to do if you do get stuck in one of these dust storms.
The borderland deals with winds on a constant basis, and if you've driven through the gap between Las Cruces and El Paso, you may have seen a dust storm or two. And what most people don't know about dust storms is that they're extremely dangerous and they can be deadly. In fact, in the past 2 years, New Mexico has had frequent incidences where there's been car pileups on the interstate causing deaths.
What happened in all of those occasions is people continue to drive on the interstate, and you have people that immediately first respond is to slam on their brakes while someone coming from behind them can't see them and plows into them. This creates multi-car pileups.
It's a common incident because dust storms don't just come around for a season, but year-round. Much like Arizona's Pull Aside, Stay Alive initiative, New Mexico encourages drivers to take 5, stay alive.
If you see the dust in front of you crossing the road, go ahead and pull aside at that moment. Don't enter the dust. Don't wait until it's too late.
Once you've pulled over on the side, make sure all your car lights are off so others don't steer in your direction. And if you must keep driving, tap on the brakes so that the flashing lights bring awareness to other drivers. Sometimes it's hard to take shelter on the road, and if that's the case, keep this in mind.
The greatest danger to the human body is what we actually breathe in. Believe it or not, there are the spores that can create valley fever living in the soils around here.
A fungus in soils that have created a silent problem in the local desert. In fact, a farmer from the region passed away in Las Cruces last year after contracting valley fever from breathing in dust. So the best thing to do is use your shirt as a way to cover your nose and your mouth.
So it doesn't matter what time of year it is or where you are, dust storms can happen at any time, anywhere. So follow those safety tips and take 5 to stay alive.
Thank you, Selena. Summer is the peak season for one of the nation's deadliest weather phenomena, lightning. So brace yourself. We're about to see a lot more storm activity in our area.
We will soon see more of this rolling through the borderland area.
When thunder roars, go indoors.
It's a simple and catchy phrase that helps save lives. But for one of our certified weather watchers, when thunder roars, he heads outdoors.
Always astounds me how powerful nature can get, and I love just documenting that power.
Shooting Mother Nature is one of his favorite hobbies.
And there was one image that I did send you that literally made me scream and yell like I was at a sports game. That was one of my shots that I had always wanted to get. And when I got it, it was an amazing feeling.
Lightning actually serves a bigger purpose than just lighting up the night sky.
Lightning actually replenishes nitrogen in the soils for our plants. So not only is it amazing to look like, it is beneficial as well, but the problem is it is one of the more deadly aspects of weather.
So make sure you know when it's time to head indoors.
If you can hear thunder, then you're close enough to be struck by lightning. Lightning has actually been known to strike as much as 10 to 15 miles away from a storm.
This is why Garcia says he takes advantage of today's technology.
If I'm photographing a lightning storm, I usually program my camera to shoot a time lapse, and I don't have to stay outside. I could just sit in my car and wait. If you feel it's getting too dangerous, then wrap it up. I do that all the time.
But just because you see a storm doesn't always mean you are in danger.
There's going to be many times when you'll be able to see lightning at a great distance and not hear the thunder, and we generally tell people if that's the case, you're probably far enough away from that storm.
And the dangers don't stop there. Say you're hiking and you get surprised by a thunderstorm. You can't always run to your car for shelter, and there are certainly no buildings nearby, so this is what you should immediately do.
What you want to do is you want to distance yourself from tall objects, but you don't want to make yourself the tallest object around. So we tell people if you cannot find any shelter, the best thing you can do is crouch down, much like a catcher in a baseball game.
The idea is to have the tips of your toes be the only parts of your body to have contact with the ground, because when lightning strikes the ground, the current can also travel through it. This is the only way to run the risk of small shock to the tips of your toes than to the rest of your body. This is also why you don't want to do any outdoor activities when you know there is a potential for thunderstorms that day. Now, lightning, of course, can be dangerous and deadly in other ways, especially in our region. The Southwest is known for having what we call dry thunderstorms, since the area lacks quite a bit of moisture. The lightning strikes from these dry thunderstorms can particularly cause hazards in the desert, because they can start wildfires when there is not enough saturated water in the ground. Now, this brings us to our next threat from the monsoon, wildfires. It is not a threat that immediately comes to mind during the monsoon. Forecaster Jessica Nevares is here to explain how often wildfires happen in our area and what to do to avoid some of them.
Wildfires can be one of the earlier threats during the monsoon, especially coming out of a dry spring, and we've already seen some across the borderland.
According to the National Interagency Fire Center, over 1,600 wildfires in the Southwest are all sparked off by lightning.
Wildfires can rage out of control.
According to the Texas Wildlife Incident Response System, there have been 17 wildfires across Texas just this year alone. Closer to home, Laney says there have been 3 different wildfires just north of Silver City within a week.
A lot of that has to do with the fact that we get more thunderstorms into the hot part of the year, which is our monsoon season.
That's one reason why the National Weather Service issues red flag warnings.
So when someone hears the phrase red flag warning, that doesn't mean that a fire has started.
In fact, a red flag warning goes into effect when there is low relative humidity and high winds are in the forecast. And if you're not careful with the use of fire in these conditions,
if you're careless, a fire can start, and not only start, but rage very rapidly.
To avoid wildfires, make sure to never throw cigarettes or matches outside of a car, put out any outdoor fires properly by drowning them in water, and never leave any outdoor fires unattended. Jessica Navarez, KTSM 9 News.
Weathering the Storm brought to you by Canyon Road Contracting.
Many people relate the monsoon with thunderstorms, and while we don't get many in the first part of the season, we do get more widespread storms in the second half. August tends to be our wettest month of the year, which can also mean the possibility of flooding. Thunderstorms can produce hail, heavy downpours, and strong downburst winds. And there is one thing you should definitely keep in mind when you do come across a strong storm during your commute.
Motorists need to keep in mind that heavy rains can accompany severe thunderstorms, and the big threat for motorists are wet roadways, which can get slick with just a little bit of rain, or worse than that, flooding.
And that is why we have that saying, turn around, don't drown. When coming across flooded roadways, the majority of flood-related deaths happen in a vehicle. Speaking of which, flooding is the deadliest weather-related killer in the United States, and it's incredibly important to know when you are at risk and what precautions to take. Heavy rainfall should already alert you to the possibility of flooding. Water can run off streets and parking lots quickly, causing natural and man-made drainage systems to overflow. So make sure to stay away from flood-prone areas and never drive your car into water of unknown depths.
If you're out driving, it's pretty simple. We always tell people never drive where water covers the roadway. You may think it's only an inch or so deep, but it could be a foot or so deep or even more. You never know if the roadway is still there underneath that water.
If your car does stall in the flooded waters, abandon it immediately and seek higher ground. And of course, never let your children play in or around flowing water. Flood waters often hide rocks, trash, and other debris that can be dangerous to someone in their path. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I would never drive through a flooded area in a car. They're tiny. My truck can handle it. Well, that is where you would be mistaken. It only takes 6 to 12 inches of water to cause a car, or in this case, a truck, to float. The minute the water reaches the car's framework, the tires will lose contact, putting you in a floating vessel. Simply take a look for yourself.
The last 2 automobile-related flood deaths that have happened here in the borderland, they both occurred in trucks. Larger trucks, heavier trucks. Water is much more powerful than people give it credit for.
So please, the next time you encounter a flooded roadway, don't risk it. Always remember, turn around, don't drown. Speaking of flooded roadways, you may have seen this video trending in July. Take a look. This was sent by one of our weather watchers. You can see street flooding by the Montecillo apartments in West El Paso. This was created by a storm that produced anywhere from ½ an inch to ¼ of an inch. Laney says there is one particular reason for this happening.
As we did a little survey on that afterwards, we come to find out that it really had nothing to do with the city's drainage. It was because of the ongoing construction.
The National Weather Service believes once this project is finished, we should see the flooding issues gone. Laney says this is quite common in areas of ongoing constructions. Now, if you do live in an area that's prone to flooding, you're encouraged to have sandbags on hand before the heavy rains begin. You can pick sandbags up any day of the week. The locations are right there on your screen as well as on our website. Hours do vary. The limit is 10 bags per visit. You'll need to show a Texas ID or El Paso water bill. Now, with the dangers of flooding and strong possible storms, you will begin to hear more watches and warnings being issued. But do you know the difference? I set out to find out exactly how many El Pasoans know the difference between a severe thunderstorm watch and a severe thunderstorm warning. Difference between severe thunderstorm watch and severe thunderstorm warning?
Not at all.
No.
I thought it was the same thing.
One is possible and one's gonna happen.
The watch is when it's coming in. The warning is, I guess, you guys letting us know about it.
You know the difference between severe thunderstorm watch and severe thunderstorm warning?
Obviously, a watch, you're looking out for it. A warning, it's coming, it's here.
The easiest way to explain the difference between a watch and a warning is through cake. Basically, a severe thunderstorm watch means we have all the right ingredients to see a thunderstorm form. In this case, the cake. In the simplest form, the ingredients include instability, moisture, and a little lift. These ingredients come together at the exact same moment, at a little heat. In a short amount of time, you have yourself a severe thunderstorm warning, or in this case, a chocolate cake.
But what is a severe thunderstorm? What does a severe thunderstorm mean to me?
What defines a severe thunderstorm is large hail and strong outflow winds, and whether it's a watch or a warning determines the different steps you should take for your safety.
Is the threat going to be large hail today? If so, maybe I need to garage my car. Is the threat going to be very strong winds? If so, maybe I need to take the umbrella out of the patio furniture so that it doesn't blow over. If the threat's going to be flooding rain, am I in a low spot? Does my home tend to flood? Do I need to go somewhere where I'm going to be safe?
These are some of the things to keep in mind when you hear severe thunderstorm watch. For a severe thunderstorm warning, here's what you should do.
The danger is imminent. It is either happening or about to happen. And the best thing someone can do when a warning is issued is not run outside to take care of the patio furniture because they're at risk of being struck by lightning. When you hear a warning, that is the moment to take shelter. And the best place to shelter in a severe thunderstorm is indoors.
With severe thunderstorms comes the possibility of a gustnado. Yes, you heard that right, gustnados. And those aren't the only twister-like threats we commonly see here in the desert Southwest. Forecaster Selena Quintana explains what exactly these twister-like weather phenomena are and what you should do if you ever encounter one.
Well, we live in the desert. And as you can see, I'm right in the middle of it. Now, because we live in the desert, we're more prone to dust devils and dust storms, but we're also prone to what many have not heard of is gustnados. But what exactly is a gustnado?
Like something with wind. It's nothing but dirt. That comes all of a sudden. A wind tornado, maybe?
A gustnado is something very similar to a dust devil.
So alike, they in fact hold similar properties to dust devils and tornadoes. However, they're also very different. Gustnados are only seen on the outer part of a thunderstorm.
A thunderstorm is going to produce a wind gust that goes out ahead of it. That's what we call a gust front. So that's going to be the first part of the word gustnado.
A gust front that's filled with cold air being pushed out by warm rain. And once the cold gust meets the warm air on the ground, the front begins to spin.
Spin like this. It's what we consider a horizontal spin. But because of the heat on the edge of that gust, it causes that horizontal spin to rise and to begin to turn and move up. And it looks just like a tornado.
Hence the name gustnado.
Right. Yeah, okay. That's great. A gustnado, I didn't even know it was a thing.
And although it sounds as threatening as a tornado, it's actually very weak, and it's never been recorded by a Fujita scale, reaching only 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. It's not even located in the core of the storm and only lasts a few seconds. Lifting up to 300 feet, it can toss debris and look a bit threatening.
If you see one of these things, you don't want to get near it. You want to keep your distance, and just as you would with a tornado, use the same safety precautions. Go indoors, get away from doors and windows. The idea is most of the danger comes from flying debris.
Now, if you're outside or driving and you're not sure if you're seeing a gustnado or a tornado, just make sure you always assume the worst and try to get as far away from it as you can.
And while many people often confuse a gustnado with a tornado, we have seen a couple of tornadoes this year in the borderland, believe it or not. The first one was back in early June, where an EF1 tornado formed in Alamogordo, destroying mobile homes and causing minor injuries. The second one, right there on your screen, forming over the Lordsburg Playa on July 17th. This one was not rated and didn't cause any damage, but it definitely was a sight to see. And it is a big misconception that El Paso doesn't see tornadoes because of the mountains.
Now, the truth of the matter is we don't have the same typical airflow that they have in the open plain states around here, but it has nothing to do with our mountains. It's because in order to get a true meso-type tornado, you need multiple ingredients.
Such as a very strong wind shear, basically what creates that swirl that eventually goes into the atmosphere. And to get that spin started and something to create the lift, such as a dry boundary, but many times landspout tornadoes like the one that you are seeing on your screen go unnoticed or undetected.
And I suspect that these are much more frequent than we give credit for, because the only way we're going to know these, because they can be short-lived, matter of just a few minutes. There's a lot of open territory where there just is nobody there across parts of the borderland.
And this is exactly where weather watchers come in. We, as much as the National Weather Service, need video and other photograph evidence that these landspouts have indeed formed, especially because the radar doesn't always pick them up. Now, I know what some of you may be wondering, what is a landspout tornado? Think of this one more of a dust devil, only stronger.
And if you take even a simple dust devil and you spin it up into the thunderstorm, by definition, a tornado is simply violently rotating column of air spinning around violently, touching the ground and touching the cloud. So whenever that dust devil gets sucked into the cloud, it officially becomes a tornado.
And with all of this being said, the real question now is, what can we expect for the rest of our monsoon? We have gone over the dangers of the monsoon can pose and what you should do to better protect yourself. As for the outlook, Laney says it is looking rather promising.
We expect a typical monsoon around here, and that generally means between 8 and 9 inches of rainfall total.
So make sure to have your sandbags ready, know what the risk is, the biggest in your area, and take the proper steps to keep yourself and your loved ones safe. And as we mentioned earlier, KTSM held its first ever Weather Watchers event this year, right? Certifying people across the borderland to help us better help you. Now, our next Weather Watchers event is planned for September 28th, called the Weather Fest. So make sure you keep an eye out, as we will release more information as we get closer to the event. Now, if you do want to become a weather watcher, all you have to do is send in your weather photos to us on any of our social media platforms or at our email, news@ktsm.com. I truly hope that you have found this helpful and are able to tackle on what is left of the monsoon. Special thanks to meteorologist Jason Laney at the National Weather Service, photographers Ruben Espinosa, Andrew Esparza, and our editor Eri Rosales. On behalf of the Weather Authority team, we want to thank you for making us your source for your complete weather coverage. Until next time.